Hello and welcome. My name is Angie Holden and I'm the blogger behind the Country Chic Cottage. Sawgrass has a brand new product and it's called Sawgrass VersiFlex. It is a new ink and paper system, and you put it in an SG500 or an SG1000 printer and you can print sublimation, yes, but you can also print on their special VersiFlex paper and do things like unfinished wood, as well as cotton shirts. What is this product? How does it work? Is it the right product for you? Should you switch to Sawgrass VersiFlex instead of just a regular sublimation printer? I am going to answer all of those questions and more in this video, and we are going to put this product to the test. Now, the first thing I want to say is that I purchased this printer, and this video is not sponsored at all, so this is 100% my true and honest opinions. And the second thing, I want to note this a couple different times during this video. You cannot use your existing Sawgrass printer that already has sublimation ink in it and convert that to a VersiFlex printer. You do need a new printer to put the VersiFlex in, and I do think that is absolutely true because this printer does not have black. It actually has an expander cartridge that works with this VersiFlex paper, and because it doesn't have the black, I feel like a printer that already has black in it is not going to work for this system. So I will link to everything that I use in the description below this video, and I got a bundle. So I got the printer, I got the ink, and I got the VersiFlex light paper. So you need all of those to make the VersiFlex system work properly. And then also I do want to note that I am using a little book travert with some books file for all of the projects that I'm doing today, and I do have that for free in the description below this video, so head there to get the file as well if you want to make projects like the ones I've shown, no matter if you have the VersiFlex or not. So now let's take a look at getting this printer out of the box and setting it up, because that is the first step to using this system. I'm using the SG500 for this tutorial. An SG500 or an SG1000 will work, however you do need a new printer, so you cannot convert your existing Sawgrass printer that you've added sublimation ink to a VersiFlex printer. You do need a new printer for this process, and I bought the bundle that came with the VersiFlex ink. Now the VersiFlex ink is cyan, magenta, and yellow, and then instead of black you have something that they're calling an expander cartridge that goes in the black slot. To set this up, you'll just open up the cover and you have the slots for your cartridges. Now these are labeled. The first one is for black. I'm going to remove the expander cartridge from the package and add it to the first slot. Press it in. Next is cyan. Then I'll just continue with magenta and yellow. Once all those inks are installed, you can close the cover and then go ahead and plug in your Sawgrass printer. The printer will then run through the setup and push the ink through the lines of the printer itself. During that time, go ahead and head to the Sawgrass website and download Sawgrass Print Utility, as you will need that for printing purposes. When printing with this printer, you can either print on your favorite sublimation paper or you can print on the VersiFlex light paper system. Now, it just depends on what you're doing. If you want to do sublimation, traditional sublimation, you would print on sublimation paper. If you're looking to press onto cotton, or I'm actually going to do something on uncoated wood in this video, then you would use the VersiFlex Lite. And as I'm walking through the software, I will show you where it tells you which paper to print on. These are going to be two completely different processes, and in this video, I'm going to make a project with both. When you open the package of VersiFlex Lite, the first thing you're gonna see is that it says important, print this side. Now, the first thing you're gonna notice is that when you pull this paper out, there's not a ton of difference between these sides. One side maybe is smoother than the other, but it is going to be very important that you don't mix this up. So be sure to leave it in the packaging and leave the sticker on there, and don't pull all of it out of the stack. Just pull each one out as you want to print. When you pull out the tray in order to load your media, you will load it with the print side facing down. If I'm using the VersiFlex Lite and I pull this out, I'm going to print on this side. So I would pull it out, flip it over so the print side is down, add that to the tray, adjust the tray to fit the paper, and then I would be ready to print on the VersiFlex Lite. You would do the same process if you were printing with sublimation paper. The print side would go down. And then when you're ready to print, you just shut the bottom tray. Did want to note that if you send like a nozzle check to this printer, the black will be blank, so there won't be anything there. So let's say I printed this color chart, and as you can see, I have cyan, magenta, yellow. The black is actually clear because it's that expander cartridge. So do be aware of that. I kind of panicked when I printed my nozzle check when setting this up. Do be aware that the black will print clear. You may also notice these colors seem really bright, so let's see how this works when we actually do a project. Now that I have it set up, I'm gonna make a few projects. I'm going to make several shirts using VersiFlex. I'm gonna make an unfinished wood piece using VersiFlex, and then I'm going to print on sublimation paper and make a shirt and a mug just to show you that this printer works for sublimation as well. So you don't lose the capability to do sublimation when you do the VersiFlex system. You can still do all the great sublimation that you've come to expect with Sawgrass. However, this adds on the ability to use the VersiFlex paper and the VersiFlex ink to do the cotton and the unfinished wood. Now, before I start printing on this, the Sawgrass VersiFlex Lite is like average about $1 a sheet. So I do want you to note that that is going to be more expensive than you're used to for making a project. So do note that. And I also wasted quite a few sheets, and we'll talk about that kind of in the pros and cons at the end of this. So let's make a few projects. So I'm going to try to print directly from Sawgrass Print Utility for the projects that I'm going to do. You do need to connect your printer to Wi-Fi and connect it to your computer. So I have that done. Then I'm going to add a file and find the file on my computer. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate it at 90 degrees. I'm going to print it at about a 10 inches wide. We're going to print on the VersiFlex Lite paper first to use on a cotton garment. So let me show you what you need to do here. So for both sublimation as well as the VersiFlex, you'll probably need to mirror your design. Then you need to pick what you're putting it on. I'm going to put this on a cotton shirt. If I pick cotton, it is going to tell me down here to use the VersiFlex Lite. If I was printing on a polyester shirt, it will tell me True Pix Classic, and that's Sawgrass's sublimation paper. So that is when you would use sublimation. So for any of these, if I pick something like uncoated wood, it is going to tell me to use the VersiFlex Lite. If I pick something like ceramic, it is going to tell me that I need to use a sublimation blank with sublimation paper. So when you choose what you're putting it on, that will tell you the type of paper as well as sort of the type of blank that you need. Now, if you're using the bypass tray with your printer, you would need to pick that. I'm just going to go ahead and pick tray 1. High quality is fine. I have letter size paper. I do want to go up here to color management. I like to print things like this as vivid. If it was a photograph of a person, I would print photographic, but I like to print vivid for all other prints. Now let's head to the printer and print on the VersiFlex Lite. Again, it's going to be very important for you to load your paper correctly and pull this tray out to catch the paper. Then go ahead and click print within the software. The print speed seems to be similar to a sublimation print. Now I do want to note that this ink is wet when it comes out of here. So I'm going to use this as an example. I'm not going to press it. So if I was to touch this ink at this point, it will smear and come off of my paper. So I need to be careful when you print this not to touch the ink at all. So the heat press needs to be ready, and you need to be ready to press this. The VersiFlex paper is not like sublimation paper. You need to press this just as soon as you print it. So I'm going to print another one, and we are going to immediately press on my heat press. I have my heat press set to 375 degrees Fahrenheit for 30 seconds, and I am preheating this and also adjusting the pressure. The VersiFlex Lite paper requires heavy pressure from your heat press, so you are going to want to use a traditional heat press for this one. Now that I've preheated this, I sort of trimmed the print where it is the same on both sides so that I could eyeball this. Now you have one shot at this. You cannot readjust the location of your print. So you need to make sure it's in location as well as centered, and then drop that paper directly onto the fabric. Do not move it. Cover that with protective paper and press 375 degrees Fahrenheit, 30 seconds, heavy pressure. Once that time's up, remove the paper, and you're going to want to peel this immediately. Now it sort of sticks to the fabric, so grab that corner and peel it back low and slow across the fabric. It might pull on the fabric some, but you do want to peel this back hot so that the paper does not stick to your fabric. And once you have that off, this is complete and it is ready to go. Because I want to show you this product on a variety of colors as far as shirts go, I went ahead and pressed several more shirts, and we'll take a look at those results later on in this video. I'm also going to press a piece of unfinished wood, so I'm just going to add that to the heat press. Again, 375 degrees Fahrenheit, 30 seconds. Printed on the VersiFlex Light, and I kind of trimmed around it because I want to get this on here exactly. Again, cover with protective paper, and you're going to want to press this 375 degrees, 30 seconds, like a medium pressure. Then again, immediately peel hot. Turn my heat press up to 385 degrees for 60 seconds. And then I printed the same design on the same printer. However, this time I used sublimation paper within the printer. And I picked a polyester shirt setting. So for sublimation, you need sublimation ink, which this ink is sublimation ink. You need sublimation paper, and this time the ink is not wet, so you could actually save these prints and press them later if you wanted to. And then you can thread your shirt onto the heat press and preheat it. Now you will need polyester for sublimation to work still. So for the sublimation paper, this is a 100% polyester shirt. I do recommend at least 75% polyester for shirts. And if you're using hard surfaces, like in the case of the mug that I'm going to make, I'll use a mug that has a sublimation coating. Once that preheating is complete, I'm just going to lint roll everything off. Then just add my sublimation print into place. And I like to tape mine down just to hold it still. Then cover with protective paper. And we can heat, and this is like about a medium pressure, 385 for 60 seconds. So I did want to note that for sublimation, you do want to pick the time and temperature for whatever sublimation blank you are using. So if you use a different sublimation blank, you want to check with where you purchase that blank to see what time and temperature they recommend. Once that time's up, we can remove the paper and then just peel back that sublimation print. And again, once you remove this, the project is complete. I repeated basically the same process for a sublimation mug. I cleaned the mug, then added my sublimation print with heat-resistant tape, added protector paper over that, and then added it to the Cricut mug press. And the Cricut mug press has a set time and temperature, so I didn't need to worry about any settings for this one. Once it was complete, I removed it from the mug press and then removed the sublimation print from the outside. Now that I've made several projects, let's take a look at the results with the Sawgrass VersiFlex. So first of all, you can feel this on the shirt. It feels like a screen print almost. I did choose a design with black in it, that way we could see how the black looked, even though the printer itself does not have black. Now, this is best on white or light colors, and I will show you some of the differences between the colors. I did want to point out that when you stretch this product, you start to see the shirt color through the print as you stretch. So it might not be the best for garments that have some stretch to them. So here this is on white. And then if you compare that to the gray version, you can see that any base color is going to alter the colors of the print that you put on it. So you need to be careful when picking the base color itself. So yes, you can put it on cotton. One of these is like 90% cotton, 10% polyester, so it's a cotton poly blend. They worked great. However, the color will change with the base color that you put it on. Now, these are supposed to last up to 30 washes. Now, that's not spectacular if you compare it to sublimation, because sublimation like becomes part of the fabric and it lasts a really long time. However, it's pretty good for a t-shirt transfer. Now, I also did an uncoated wood piece just to like have something to look at, and it worked pretty well. I feel like I can see a line where the paper was on both sides, and I don't exactly understand why that would be. It almost feels like an adhesive line, which is a little bit weird. So you may need to play with, you know, the paper itself and maybe trimming it or something, because I did feel like where I had the paper on this wood piece, and perhaps I could play with the pressure a little bit as well. But again, the black looks pretty good. You can feel it on the surface, and just to see, I can scratch this off with my fingernail. So that means that when you are doing something on unfinished wood, it would probably be decorative use only. Now, this is the VersiFlex version, and this is the Sublimation version. So the Sublimation version turned out good. However, I don't feel like the colors are as bright and vibrant as I was expecting with a Sawgrass printer. So I do feel like the colors are a little muted, and the black just doesn't really pop off the surface. So I always do 385 degrees for 50 to 60 seconds for my polyester shirts. This product might require you to sort of adjust your times and temperatures because it might have needed a little more time and temperature to make those colors really pop. So I did want to caution you there. Finally, I wanted to demonstrate that you can put this on any sublimation blank. So this is a sublimation blank, and I put it on there as well. The colors look really great on the mug. I really love the way the mug itself turned out. So this printer can work for sublimation, and then if you use the special paper, the VersiFlex paper, it can work on things like cotton or even that uncoated wood. So let's do pros and cons first, and then I'll give you my overall review. So the pros of this system obviously are it's one printer, and I can do multiple things. I can do sublimation on polyester. I could put a design on a 100% cotton shirt. I can do unfinished wood. I can do sublimation blanks. I can do a variety of things with one printer. So that is a pro. So the cons for me are the VersiFlex paper is pretty pricey. The inks are also pricey. I have to get a whole new printer for this. This is going to be something that is pricey to get into. And it's going to be pricey to continue to use. Then also there are other products on the market that do like a heat transfer on cotton. Now, would all of those last up to 30 laundry cycles like this product is claiming? Maybe, maybe not. And a lot of those you can just use with the inkjet printer. So could I do this unfinished wood piece another way and get the exact same basic results? Yes. Would it cost less? Also, yes. So for me, that is a big con. Now, does it look good on the shirt? Absolutely. Is it worth the cost? I'm not totally convinced that it is. This printer is probably for some people. Like some people are probably like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they put this out, and I've been waiting for a printer that does sublimation and cotton in this price level. So if that is you, this might be the printer for you. However, I do think there are several cons to it. Another con for me is that wet ink and having to press it immediately onto these shirts. I just found it difficult to locate. I ruined several prints by touching them on accident. One time I didn't have my tray set correctly and the print sort of flopped out of the printer and totally ruined it. I also got some of that ink on my heat resistant gloves during the entire process, and then it was transferring to everything I touched. So I just found it kind of frustrating, like the whole process with the wet ink. Just totally not a fan of that. And then you can do cotton, yes. However, it can only be a light colored cotton. So the darker I got with the colors, the more that it altered my original print. So I could not even use the VersiFlex light. I couldn't use it on a black shirt. So right now, the way it is, it's still extremely limiting. Yes, it opens up a few more possibilities, but I still feel limited by the overall system. Now, did it do a good job with sublimation? Yes. Now, I did mention the colors on the shirt looked a little muted for me, and I might want to, especially the black, frankly. So I might want to adjust my time and temperatures or deal with a black that doesn't truly look black on a lot of the surfaces that I sublimate on, which is just not ideal, frankly. I like a really crisp and vibrant black. So my overall review is that, quite frankly, for me personally, I probably wouldn't invest in the Sawgrass system. I would probably have a sublimation printer and then an inkjet printer that I can do similar heat transfers with on cotton or on wood. I feel like this heat transfer is really similar to other products on the market, and it's not necessarily worth the extra cost of the printer and the special ink, as well as the special paper, which are all very pricey. I just feel like there are ways to do this on the market already that are not as expensive as this product. And like, I can still feel it on this shirt, on this cotton shirt. You can still feel it. It feels like a screen print. So it's not like it is something that is embedded into the shirt. So it's not like it's sublimation for cotton. I wouldn't think of the VersiFlex that way. I would think of it more as a way to transfer an image onto cotton, and also a sublimation aspect to it. So it's sort of like a two-fold system. And quite frankly, I'm not convinced that I would want that in my craft room. I do think perhaps there are people out there that will be very excited about this system. And if that's you, then this video teaches you everything that you need to know about how to use it. If that's not you and you're wondering, do I need this VersiFlex? How does it work? Be sure to study this video before you purchase it, because I do feel like there are several cons and you might not be happy with the results that you get out of this just for the price that you're going to have to pay in order to get into it and continue with it with these special inks and special paper. And remember, that special ink that is expensive that goes in this printer, you are using that ink when you are doing sublimation as well. So with this printer, you kind of increase the cost of your sublimation projects, as well as an increased cost for any cotton projects, because you need the special paper with the cotton as well. So now, that's a lot. I've covered a lot. If you have any questions about Sawgrass VersiFlex, drop down in the comment section, ask away. If you liked this video and it helped you, give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, head on over to my YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. I have videos just like this one every single week, and trust me, you don't want to miss any of those. So thank you all so much for joining me, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.